Hello and welcome to YHTV's Trinity of Life. This is episode 20. I'm Christina Suzama. Thank you for joining me today again as we continue to explore our wonderful world of healing arts, meditation, therapies, and other modalities of helping us find balance in our individual journeys. You know, we are excited to meet those who are on the leading edge of creating change on this planet and those who will inspire others to make life changes. Recently, I've become more aware of individuals suffering from an imbalance of tick-borne illnesses. In other words, Lyme disease. You know, I had not realized the increasing numbers and the devastation that these individuals have to endure. And the more I heard about it and discussed it with certain people, and I do believe that on the Magical Medical Tour, we also had covered it just a little on one of our shows. Here today with us is one of Yoga Hub's virtual conference faculty, who has also recently begun contributing to the Yoga Hub blogs with her wonderful writings. Kat Robinson, she's on a mission with her yoga practice. If you know anything about her, you know, she is on that mission to support individuals through all kinds of therapeutic yoga for all sorts of imbalances. You know, from her sewing yoga DVDs to, you know, her book about almost dying and how she recovered from all that, and now on another journey that she is on. So I would like to introduce to you, and we're so honored to always work with her, Kat Robinson. Hello, Kat.
Hey, Christina. It's so good to be here today.
Well, welcome to YHTV. Finally.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's really good to be here. I'm so honored to be a part of Yoga Hub and to be so involved with all that you're doing, cutting edge technology, this new platform. It's wonderful. And I'm just very honored to be going along for the ride with you.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, all
You're
aboard,
so welcome.
right? Let's all take off on this.
Yep.
So, Kat, tell us, you know, help us to understand this tick-borne illnesses. What is that, and how does one contract it?
Well, a tick-borne illness is Lyme disease, specifically Lyme disease and Rocky Mountain spotted fever are what I'm talking about today. There are others that are not as common, but these two particular tick-borne illnesses are becoming almost to pandemic proportions. I mean, there are so many people that are getting this. I contracted Rocky Mountain spotted fever from a tick bite in 1979. I was 17 at the time, and when I got this, it was relatively unknown. It was very rare. In fact, I believe one of the statistics that were given to me at the time was it was like 1 in every 10 million ticks carry this.
Wow.
So a lot of people, yeah, it was crazy. A lot of people were telling me, you know, you should try for the Irish sweepstakes. You should, you know, the luck of the draw here. But now it seems that this is very common. And I suspect it's probably been common all along. We just didn't know what it was. You know, it's now, even today, Lyme disease and Rocky Mountain spotted fever are very hard to detect. And as a result of that, there are literally hundreds of thousands of people that go either undiagnosed or are completely misdiagnosed because the tests are so inaccurate. But both of them are bacterial infections that are caused by, they're different bacterial infections, but they're both bacterial. They're not viral. They are both carried by ticks, which is an arachnid. It's in the same family as spiders. So if you're not familiar with what a tick is, it's just a little bitty bug. I mean, it's just really small.
But is it similar to the ticks that the dogs carry, like the animals carry?
Right. In fact, Rocky Mountain spotted fever is usually contracted by the American dog tick. That's usually how you get it. You know, and the Rocky Mountain part of it, that's kind of a That's not really relative of where you get this. You can get this anywhere.
Hmm.
It's just that the first case was discovered in the Rocky Mountains, so it was given that name. But it is getting to be more and more common throughout the United States. It's not just, at one time it was pretty much isolated that if you went camping in a wooded area, if you lived in the Midwest or the South, or even on the East Coast, you really didn't hear too much about it on the West Coast or to the West. But now you really are starting to hear more of that. So it was like east of the Rockies is where it was before, and now it's kind of shifted to be just everywhere. So that's, this is why I felt that this is important to address, because I know how devastating this was to me health wise for many years. And
Now, for
I,
you, did they diagnose it early, or was it one of
I,
those where, I mean, what are the symptoms that people are looking
well,
for?
now
Fever.
and that is such a widespread non-specific thing. The
Mm.
symptoms can be so different in so many people, but the main symptoms that you look for if you're looking for this is, number one, you've had a tick bite. Number two, you could develop a rash, but you may not develop a rash. The symptoms are very flu-like. You get fevers and chills. And my throat was extremely sore. I mean, it was like I had the worst case of strep that I had ever had.
Mm.
I also couldn't move my neck. I was paralyzed on my right side. I couldn't move. When it first started, I thought I had the flu. I thought, okay, a couple of days off school, I'll go back to school in a few days, I'll be fine. By Sunday, I started having symptoms on Tuesday, and by Sunday, I was in dire condition. I mean, I couldn't see, I was covered in spots, and I just happened to have an old country doctor here who recognized this as merely tick fever.
Mm.
It wasn't, he really didn't give it that name. It was just tick fever. And he transferred me from our small hospital here to a larger hospital. And they basically, at that time, what they did was they ruled out other illnesses. They did a spinal tap to rule out meningitis, and I think there were a few other things that they ruled out. But I had the characteristic rash. I had had a tick bite, and the symptoms were there. So they immediately started me on tetracycline, which is a very common antibiotic. It's a very easy protocol. Once you diagnose it and get started on the treatment, it's a fairly easy protocol to go through. It's just getting that diagnosis.
Mm.
And that's really where we're running into an issue with these two particular tick-borne illnesses, is getting that diagnosis. According to the CDC, there is a 60% error rate.
Wow.
And 60%, that is a staggering number to me. Error rate in the diagnosis, in the test for Lyme disease. And they're estimating that annually in the United States that there is an estimated 300,000 new cases of Lyme disease in the United States.
Hmm.
But only 40% of those are actually diagnosed through testing, because 60% of the time it's false. So many people go to the doctor, and I do belong to the support group on Facebook, the Survivors of Rocky Mountain Spotted Fever and Lyme disease. And I see it daily. I mean, it's just every day. There are so many people that are saying, the doctor doesn't believe I have this. I've had a tick bite, but my test came back negative. They're not starting me on the medicine. What do I do? Well, of course, you need to get another opinion, and you need to keep finding a doctor. Keep looking until you find a doctor that is going to listen to you, because it can be fatal. I was so near death when I was diagnosed. I was in a coma. I had gone into renal failure. My skin, when it started healing, my skin literally fell off from the spots are actually little leaking blood vessels. The blood vessels thin out and start
And are
leaking.
they
And
itchy? Are they?
not at all. In fact,
Oh.
when I first had the spots start developing, It was like my 3rd day of having the flu, and
Mm.
so my mom was taking me to the doctor, and my now husband was my boyfriend at that time, and he had came over. He was in college, and I had sat down after, I had gotten dressed and I came out into the living room, and he looked at me and he goes, "What is going on with your feet?" And I had this rash all over my feet.
Mm.
And I wasn't even aware of it. Well, I thought that it was a simple heat rash. It was warm. I had been having chills. I'd been sleeping in pajamas with feet in them. So I thought I've got a heat rash. I didn't even tell the doctor. I went to the doctor, the same doctor that actually ended up diagnosing it. And he said, "I think you might have mono. Let's test you for that and see if that's the problem here." Well, the test came back that I did not have mono. So he
Mm.
said, "Well, if you're not better tomorrow, come back in and we will see what is going on, do some more tests." The next day, when I got up, I had these spots all up my legs, across my abdomen, across my back. So I went to the doctor, and this time I told him, I said, we something's not right here. And at that time, Tylenol was fairly new on the market, and I had been taking aspirin for my fever. And so he recommended that I stop taking the aspirin. He thought maybe that was causing this petechial rash that was going on.
Mhm.
And the next day, and he told my mom, he said she does not have mono. I'm not sure what's going on at this point, but if she's not better tomorrow, which would have been Sunday, I want to see her back in my office. Well, I didn't make it to that point. I ended up in the emergency room earlier because I woke
Mm.
up and my blood vessels were starting to pop in my eyes, and I had this terrible, terrible light sensitivity. I couldn't open my eyes. I was sitting, and I remember going into the emergency room, and my doctor, they called him, and I'm sitting there waiting for him, and I hear my mom say, "Here he comes." And I did one of these, kind of looked up, and he's running down the hall pointing at me, going, "Have you had a tick bite?" And so I was just very blessed that I had a doctor that recognized it.
So what was
And
that time span? About a
it was
week or
Tuesday to Sunday. So what, 5
wow.
days? Yeah. But I had actually been bitten probably a week earlier. So there's
Mhm.
about, it can start anywhere. Usually there's about a 7 to 10 day incubation period before you start developing the symptoms.
Mm.
And I did catch the tick on me. A lot of people don't. And that makes it even harder to diagnose. The tick bites them, they may scratch and it falls off of them and they never find the tick. So it makes it harder to diagnose. So I also want to say that if you have been in an area, like if you've been camping or if you've been in an area where there may have been ticks
Mm.
and you start developing these symptoms and they can't pinpoint what is wrong with you, you may want to take that into consideration that this could be a possibility. And now the standard protocol then was tetracycline. Now the standard protocol is doxycycline. It's a fairly benign antibiotic. If you go on it and you don't have this disease, I don't think it's really going to hurt
Mhm.
you
I was gonna
much.
say that, right.
Right. But if you do have it and you don't get on the antibiotic right away, you could die. At the very
Mm.
least, you could end up with very long term effects of this. And even with the medication, you can still end up with residual repercussions from it, which is
Mhm.
why I'm here today.
Mhm. Mhm.
Most of the people, whether it's Lyme disease or Rocky Mountain spotted fever, have similar residual effects such as joint pain, muscle aches. Some people have hearing loss. Sometimes I get a little buzzing in my ear that sounds like a bee buzzing in my ear, but I was very fortunate. It's just occasionally, literally maybe every 2 or 3 years that happens. I have a very, very difficult time adjusting to different light changes. Um, I joke about it and I tell people that I was bitten by a blood-sucking creature and now I can't go out in daylight. But but really it's not a joke. A lot of people really are affected by this. This happened to me when I was so young that my life has adjusted to it. But I have friends on this Facebook group that have contracted this later in life, and it has turned their entire world upside down. One man who was a DEA officer,
Mm.
he had to retire because he was just so, as he put it, he was KO'd by a tick. Here he chases drug addicts, but
Oh.
a tick was what got him. And I see people on there who were marathon runners and, really had their lives established, and this has greatly affected them. And I just want them to know that there is hope in the scheme of this,
Mhm.
that I started doing yoga when I was in my 30s. And I had gone through years of joint pain and muscle pain and depression and, um, just feeling defeated, just absolutely feeling defeated. And I ended up starting a yoga practice as a result of a friend. Actually, she recommended it for stress for me because I was closing down a business and I was very stressed. But it started taking care of all the joint pains that I had and the muscle aches. And that in itself was wonderful. That was like just such a blessing to be able to have that. But what I really gained that was even bigger was this sense of empowerment.
Mm.
This sense of I'm not defeated. My life has just shifted. And sometimes a shift can be a very big challenge to get through, but it's not always a negative.
Mhm.
I mean, really, if I had not had that tick bite, I would not be here today talking to you about this. I would not be knowledgeable in this. I probably wouldn't even know what it is. And so as a result of that, I've just kind of brought this to myself that there was a bigger purpose here. And so I'm hoping that possibly, some of these people that are feeling so defeated and so depressed that they might be able to realize that maybe there is a bigger purpose. I mean, they didn't die.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
there's still something that is there for them in life. And and I'm not talking about putting your big toe in your ear. I'm not talking about this twisted up, contorted, these extreme poses that you see in magazines. I'm talking about a very gentle, mindful, reconnect with your body yoga practice. And, that just about anybody can do, even if they can't stand for any length of time, they can still do this. And that's what I want to be able to convey.
Mm. Wonderful, Kat. I mean, so through the yoga, it's just helped relieve a lot of your physical.
Physical and mental and emotional, all of it.
Mm, mm. Yeah, it's yoga is pretty spectacular, isn't it? It's
It
just
really is. It really is.
my
And,
love
you know
is the therapy of what how people transition from it. It's
yeah,
wonderful.
it's amazing. I mean, I literally, as my book says, I reinvented myself with
Hmm.
you. There were some things that I couldn't do as a result of this tick bite that I will probably never be able to do. And some of them are big. One of them is I've never been able to drive because my eyes don't adjust to light. So a headlight coming at me, I mean, I'm blinded for several minutes afterwards.
Mm,
Even wearing dark glasses outside, I still struggle with
mm,
with light. And but I had this again. I had this at such a young age, and I didn't know how to drive then. So I never, it's like being, blind from birth. You really don't miss what you've never had.
mhm, mhm, mhm,
Sometimes I do, but for the most part, it's really not held me back much.
mhm, mhm,
So I've just kind of moved forward with that. But for the people who have been doing these things and have had, they didn't have these challenges. And then all of a sudden, one day, they have all of these challenges going on and they can't hear and they can't stand and they can't move. And, they just, some people lose limbs. I mean, I was so fortunate that I didn't get gangrene and have to have my hands and feet amputated. I mean, that was discussed. but, they're all here, and like I said, my skin fell off. What is it called? Well, anyway, it fell off. It peeled like I had been burned, but underneath it, I had very nice skin, and I get told to this day what wonderful skin I have, so oh, it was
It was
like
a
the best.
natural shedding.
Yeah, it was the best chemical peel that I could have had.
There you go. There you go.
It was, I mean, I really had to just come to terms with the fact that I was different.
Mm,
After,
mhm.
that I went into the hospital one person, and when I came out, I was somebody different. And, and that's okay. Different is not necessarily bad. And that's what I would like people to know with this, that their lives may have changed, but that may not necessarily be a bad thing. It's all a matter of perspective.
Mhm, mhm.
And, we are always going to have challenges. We are always going to, it may be a tick bite, or it could be, cancer. It could be numerous things. It could be a foreclosure of a home. It could be a lot of things. We can't change those challenges. What we can change is how we react to those challenges and how we go forth from that point. And that is what yoga has taught me, is to just feel what I feel at any given moment, not try to suppress those feelings, not to deny them. I denied them for several years. I never talked about it. I have friends that I had for 20 years that never knew I was sick, that never knew this happened to me
Mhm.
because I wouldn't talk about it. It just was something that it was almost as if I don't talk about it, it's like it never happened, you know? And, you really can't do that. You can't just bury things away, because eventually it's going to crawl back up out of that hole, and come back up and say, "Hey, here I am again. You better deal with me this time."
So do people have recurrences? I mean, is
Um,
it like
y-
once in your system, it doesn't go away and you have recurring
well,
incidents?
you know, s- there's so for me, yeah. I mean, I have not had reoccurrences of Rocky Mountain spotted fever per se, but I have had reoccurrences of can't move my neck, or
Mm.
my joints just ache really badly, or some days my eyes work great and some days they don't, and that seems to be kind of the norm with everybody who has been, not just with Rocky Mountain spotted fever, but also Lyme disease, that it kind of, um, gets in your system and just kind of hangs with you. The repercussions do. Now, with the Rocky Mountain spotted fever, one of the things that I want to point out here, that there are differences, even though there's so many similarities, but there are differences. With Rocky Mountain spotted fever, it can strongly affect the heart. It can strongly affect your gastrointestinal system. I am a celiac. I have no idea if that had anything to do with it or not, but I do have celiac disease. Um, so far, I think my heart's okay. I feel like I've got a good heart, and so I hope that it stays that way. I do get concerned about my blood vessels as I'm getting older. I'm 51 now. I'm not 17 anymore. And I do worry about that because of the thinning and the leaking of the blood vessels. You know, is there weak walls? Will this one day something's just maybe could blow? I do get concerned about that. So I take extra precautions with my vascular system. I make sure and eat foods that are going to boost that. Lots of blueberries. I do eat a somewhat high protein diet to keep my tissues built up. That seems to work for me very well. I did go vegetarian for a year, and um, I didn't feel right. I felt weak and I didn't feel right. So, I don't know if maybe that is something that has to do with it. If a high protein diet is something that works very well, but it did for me. Lyme disease, on the other hand, the bacteria will bore into the tissues,
Mm.
and it is very debilitating. Lyme disease is very debilitating. is just very, very nonspecific and just a very debilitating disease. And it is so important for people to realize this because they get told it's in their head. Because the test has a 60% error rate, doctors tend to kind of start poo-pooing things off with people. Not all doctors, I shouldn't put it as a whole here, but but there are doctors that will do that, that will, just basically, say, well, you might have fibromyalgia or you might have some other nonspecific syndrome. And they just kind of poo poo it off. And really, if you have been in an area where there are ticks or that you could have been bitten by a tick, whether you find it or not, insist upon doxycycline. Get that in your system right away because it could save your life. And it could certainly save you from being debilitated for the rest of your life. So that one I cannot emphasize enough.
So, well, you've been through definitely the gamut, and you've done some great research on this. So, Kat, through the yoga, and of course, it's wonderful that you're on the Facebook and everything. Have you spoken to people about yoga, like within these groups, and
I
how has
have.
their
I have.
reception been?
I have actually, I've actually posted some videos on on YouTube, and have posted them on the Facebook group site of some poses that help me. The thing that helped me the most throughout this was sun salutations. Some people may not be able to perform sun salutations. I was lucky. But, there really are people out there that have had these diseases that can't stand on their own 2 feet because their muscles are so weak and it's so painful. So, it's also important to know that you can do just some very gentle stretches from a chair that will open up those muscles, start flowing your tissues with prana or energy, getting the blood flow into the tissues, that's very nourishing, Also, cleaning up your diet. If you eat a lot of processed foods, really, you're just eating chemicals. So keep your diet as clean as possible. Shop the perimeter of the store. Don't go down the aisles where there's, all the processed box dinners and all of that. Shop the perimeter of the store, the fresh fruits and vegetables, the lean meats, the fresh eggs, the, dairy, fresh dairy. I'm not a big milk drinker myself, but, if you're going to do that, try to get as clean as you can. Go organic if you can. Some places it's a little harder where I live. In some ways, it's harder to get the fresh produce and the organic stuff. In some ways, it's better. This time of year, we have all the farmers coming in with all their fresh produce, but it's seasonal. We have very cold winters. It's seasonal. And, and that may be another reason why that we are finding this influx of tick-borne illness in the last few years is because, well, right now we're in a terrible drought. And we did not have a very cold winter. So our insect population has just increased in folds. So that may be part of it. But back to the diet. You want to just, make sure that you eat very cleanly and, and take care of your body. Treat it kindly. Eat healing foods. Do healing things. Meditation is wonderful for managing pain, and it doesn't have to be, you sit in meditation for 30 minutes. It could be a 5-minute meditation every morning. It may be just enough to help you manage your pain a little bit better.
Sometimes the simplest forms of what we do can really help us that much further, right?
Right.
So, and I do, it's interesting that you say sun salutations because the main point with that I had learned in my little bit of yoga is the movement of that continuous movement of the spine,
Right.
right? So I
Right.
do believe, and I've been trying to rack my brain. I do believe, I think Robin Rothenberg has created chair yoga that has sun salutation.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah.
Yes, as well.
Yes,
So
that's wonderful.
for people who may want to do that, but Kat, it would be lovely if you could show our audience some very simple poses
Sure. Sure.
um,
Absolutely.
that they might
I'll
be able to
do
implement on a daily basis.
right. I can show you a few things just sitting in a chair. You're not going to be able to see my lower body, unfortunately, because of our camera here. But just very simple, bringing your arms down in line with your hips, just letting them hang at your side, and let your arms hang. Let your fingertips become very heavy. Let your joints open. When your joints open, that starts getting that movement through. That's one of the reasons why that I think sun salutations work for me is, like you said, the spine movement, the flowing of the spine, but also it puts all of your tendons and ligaments and joints through their full range of motion. And that's very opening to the body, that we tend to have energy bind up at our dense connective tissues, and when we can stretch those areas out and start getting that energy flowing back into it, it's very healing. So just let your arms hang, let your joints open, and then just very gently, keeping some resistance in your arms, you're going to inhale, bringing your arms up, and as you exhale, press them back down. Very simple, very slowly, and try to synchronize your movement with your breathing. As you bring those arms up on the inhale, when the movement stops, so should the inhale. As you exhale down, when the movement stops, so should the exhale.
And you
Another
had a
thing that
very good word that you had expressed in there, which is press your hands down.
Press your hands down.
Yes,
That's right.
which is
Keep that
it's
resistance.
a key word.
Right. Because, especially beginners in yoga, they do this. And that's not really going to do what you need. What you want is, you want to keep that resistance. You want to really stretch out. You want, like somebody is pulling you in two different directions. And then as you exhale, same thing. Like somebody's pulling you open. Just stretch as far as you can. And yoga is never about range. So if you're stretching and you're really not stretching your arms out as far as you think, especially in the beginning with these diseases, your muscles may be bound up a little bit. They may, not want to stretch that much in the beginning. But consistency is the key. It is absolutely the key. It is just every day do these few little exercises. Another one that is very good, because it starts getting those electrical impulses going in the spine, is just a simple twist. Plus, it's very good for the digestive system and the gastrointestinal system. So you're just going to simply bring your left hand to the outside of your right knee. And then as you exhale, you're going to bring your right hand back behind you and just gently look over your right shoulder, keeping your spine as tall as you can as you twist, and making sure you're not leaning back into it and giving into it. You're just very tall and very straight. If you get into the pose and you feel like that you can go farther, you want to make sure that you want to inhale and lift. And if you want to twist farther, do it on an exhale. That's very important. It's very important to flow with your breath in these poses, and stay relaxed. Don't stress, and don't hold your breath while you're holding the poses. You want to keep breathing. When we hold our breath, we are sending a signal to our brain to stress. When we relax, we are sending a signal to our brain saying, this is wonderful. Nothing's going on. We're just stretching and moving. So keep that in mind. And you want to make sure and do both sides. So, you're not going to be out of balance. So when you twist to the right, then you're going to also twist to the left. And you want to hold it for the same amount of time. So if you hold it for 2 breaths on your right side, you're going to hold it for 2 breaths on your left side. So those are some important things. Another one is just a simple child's pose that you can do seated in your chair, which is just folding forward from the hip joint, not from the waist, but from the hip joint, and just kind of release your shoulders and just fall forward. I don't know if you can still see me or not, but just kind of stretch your spine long. And you can even put a pillow on your lap for that. So if it's hard for you to fold forward, put a pillow or a bolster or something that you have that support, and you can still remain in that relaxed state without putting undue stress on your body. That's really important. Turning your head from side to side as you inhale and exhale very gently, not leaning forward, but just simply turning your head, keeping the rest of your body straight. Those are all really good things. And since it does strongly affect the joints, I also recommend twisting the fist, wiggling the
Mm.
fingers. Same thing with the ankles and feet, pointing the toes, flexing the feet back toward your head, bending your knees, maybe even pulling your knee up to your chest and holding it if you can. That stretches the knee, it stretches the hip joint. It starts opening things up so that prana can get in there. And, be true to yourself. Go as far as you can go and don't try to go farther. Just be true to yourself on that, because that's when your body responds. If you're forcing and you're pressing and you're going too fast into this, what is going to happen is your body's going to tighten up on you instead of opening up on you.
Mhm.
So, that's very, very important. This is never about range. Ever, 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 ever is yoga about range. It is only about form.
Kat, isn't that interesting that you say that? Because another thing that I'd like to remind people about with this is, if you haven't moved for a while, like I hadn't really moved for a while, I've been doing much more meditation than the actual asana of yoga. And
Right.
Yet I can feel, things are getting a little stiff and a little bit, it's like I need to move. I need to move the body. The physical part is calling now. And just earlier this morning, I decided just going to open my back up and open my rib cage up, and I have these wonderful egg blocks, and they're called yoga eggs or something like that, and they're curved blocks.
Yeah.
So they tuck into the lower back and everything really nicely, and it kind of takes you into the fish pose gently.
Right.
And I tell you, it took me 15 minutes to just slowly be able to allow my body to unravel, to do this pose that I would get into, boom, like this, like months ago. My body had to unravel. And believe me, it was a little uncomfortable. Okay.
Yeah,
And then,
it may not be comfortable at first, but we call that
correct.
sensation in yoga.
Yes, absolutely. And then
We don't
coming
call it
out of it, which is like rolling to your side, like a
Yes.
sleeping pose, that just like, ow. I mean, I literally let out a ow, because my body was just so not limber, because I do have physical issues from childhood and everything. So I deal with a lot of that as well. So for those of you out there who, are dealing with these physical issues, just know that if anything that your body may not be familiar with, or suddenly this new form of movement, I think the breath is such a key issue as you're moving through it. And the awareness that to really recognize, oh, this feels uncomfortable, and to recognize that, and then just allow your body to sink in and allow it to keep moving, as opposed to these quick movements, which does us no good, really. It's like the wonder of what you said about the arms, feeling like you're pushing against something. So you're always aware of your joints actually.
And and living in metaphor, which a lot of yoga instructors do. I mean, we tend to take metaphors in life and apply them.
Yes.
But like you said, like you're pushing against something, you are.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to, reestablish yourself. And, you are pushing against something. You're pushing against what has debilitated you.
Hmm.
And it's very, very important to listen to your body. It is so important. If we can just still ourselves enough to really listen, like you said, you were getting stiff and you were doing, having all these issues happen. If we can just listen to that, and our body will tell us what we need to do.
Hmm.
Maybe we need to open through the chest. Maybe we need to open through the shoulders. It will tell us what we need to do. And we'll end
Hmm.
up, you know, truly, when I'm teaching a class, I kind of just watch everybody in class and see where the next movement's going to come from, because I can tell I can go in and have a class completely planned out, and that never seems to happen the way it should. But if I just kind of flow with the class and what's going on within the class at that moment, because we are ever changing.
Mhm.
Who we are 10 minutes from now is not going to be who we are at this moment. So, we need to learn to flow from moment to moment to moment, and that nothing is permanent, and that, we are constantly changing and evolving, and we have to recognize that what we may not have been able to do before the tick bite, or what we may have been able to do before the tick bite, we may not be able to do now. But, a month from now, we're going to be different again.
That's right.
And if we can take that and apply it through the yoga practice and make it a more positive change, instead of staying where we are and letting this change us more negatively, and take these positive steps to rebuild ourselves.
Hmm.
That's when, we really start seeing some true healing going on.
Hmm. Hmm.
You can take the medicine, and you can go through all the protocols of medicine and treat the disease, but we're not truly healed until we heal the whole person, which is body, mind, and spirit. Like I said, physically I had a lot of issues, but I also had a lot of issues mentally and emotionally, and my spirits were just shattered. Like I said, I just had this sense of defeat, that my life is just pretty much over. Why didn't I die? I mean, my sister-in-law, I smoked for years. Here, I'm talking about how
Mm.
I worried about my heart and my blood vessels. The summer that I had this, I started smoking. And I
Wow.
just and I just started talking to my sister-in-law about this. She was in for my daughter's wedding, and I was telling her about it, and she goes, "Were you trying to kill yourself?" And I looked at her straight in the eye and I said, "Yes, I was." I didn't, not on a conscious level,
Hmm.
but somewhere subconsciously, I know that I was like, why did I live? Why, I'm no good now. And that's just not true. I mean, and I know that there are people out there right now at this moment that are struggling with that issue right there of, I want to die. I'm in so much pain. I am so depressed. And, it doesn't have to be that way. And I'm hoping, this is what I'm hoping to gain from this, is for, if I can just get one person to say, I feel so much better because of this, then it's definitely worth what I have been through to get here.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, and then I hope that that one person will continue to try to convey that message to the next person, and get this little healing train going, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One drop is a thousand waves. That's what we keep
That's
saying
right.
here at
That's
Yoga
right.
Hub.
That's right.
Kat, there was a question that came in. It says, I have a friend that has lost a lot of mobility from a tick bite years ago. How do you find a yoga instructor to help her start a yoga practice? She has low energy, very slow, and affects mainly her legs and her hips.
Be discriminate. Be discriminate about a yoga instructor. I don't know where this person is. If they're in a city, there's probably going to be numerous ones to choose from. Where I am, I'm the only one for 40 miles. So I know I know that I'm the only one for 40 miles. So I have to wear many yoga hats in the process. But, check credentials, make sure that they are qualified to teach. And I'm not talking about necessarily having a long lineage. I don't have a long lineage in yoga, but make sure that they are well trained. We want to look at this as the same way as the medical profession in a lot of ways. First, do no harm. Make sure that the yoga instructor listens to what is being said, that they're not, I am very, very cautious about making any type of adjustments to students because of, any physical, injuries that they may have had. And, I'm very cautious. If I see that they're going to hurt themselves, then I might adjust them. But if they're just simply finding their way in the pose, I want them to find their own way.
Mhm.
So be careful about it, an instructor that is big on adjusting, that they don't adjust too much and do any harm. If we can find out where this person is located, maybe we can find a referral for them.
Right, right.
If they want to email me or email you, that would be great. But my advice is definitely check credentials, be discriminate, talk to them, ask them questions, ask them if they've ever had any, experience with dealing with this type of thing. If they have not, and you are, in short supply of yoga teachers, see if they would be willing to work on getting educated along with you and the student to deal with this. I would be happy to help in any way that I can. But mainly just be cautious, talk to them, and
Mhm.
and be supportive of your friend, because they really need that support to get through this. Because I can tell you in the beginning, it's not going to be comfortable. When
Mhm.
I first
Mhm.
started doing yoga, my knees would hurt in the beginning, and it was just, not a pleasant experience in the beginning, but I kept doing it, and I kept doing it gently. The instructor kept saying, gentle, gentle, gentle.
Mhm.
I kept
Mhm.
doing it
Mhm.
gently. And after a while, those aches and pains just went away. And now I have great mobility, you know, better than some, less than others, but that's always going to be the case. And, so that's the main thing, is be supportive, help them through it, keep their courage up, keep them going.
Mhm.
And hopefully they start seeing some results. For me, it was very quickly. I would say within 6 weeks of just a little 30-minute yoga practice every day. And I was feeling so much better. And,
Mhm.
but the first week, probably the first few sessions, and I was pretty faithful to it. I did my 30-minute practice every day. I didn't go to class every day, but I did a 30-minute practice every day. And, again, consistency is the key. Keep those joints moving, keep them open. And that's, you're not going to get results if you go one time and you feel some discomfort, so you don't go back.
Mhm.
And let's just differentiate here between discomfort sensation and actual pain. We do not want you to be in pain. We want you to, go through this pretty well stress free in the mind. Discomfort of muscle stretching, that's in the beginning, that's there usually. It's
Mhm.
not always comfortable. But again, we don't want to run away from all of the discomfort in our life. We can't run away from all of the discomfort in our life,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
we want to
Mhm.
make it as comfortable as possible. So trying to find comfort in your discomfort is really, yeah, a big
But
thing to do.
you're such a fantastic example for everyone, Kat,
Well, thank
where
you. Thank you.
you've proven that with the focus and with the willpower to say, I'm done with this. I might as well
Right.
die if I cannot shift my life.
Exactly.
And you
Exactly.
have shifted your life, and it is those little increments. It's the first step, no matter
It's the
how
first
long it
step.
is. It can be a 5-minute practice each day. I don't care. It's that
Yeah, it can
first
be any,
step.
yeah, anything. It can be, 5 minutes. If that's all you can tolerate at one time,
Yes.
that is 5 minutes more than you were doing the day before. So,
Absolutely.
that's a very good point. Whatever. And don't ever, 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 ever let an instructor tell you that you need to go farther in a pose. That is simply not true. You are where you are when you're there. And if you can only, you know, bring your arm up this high, that's as high as you can bring your arm up. And keep that in mind that
Hmm.
this
Hmm.
is never about range.
Well, the body
Make your
will.
practice your own.
Absolutely. The body will slowly unfold. We had a wonderful chiropractor the other day, Richard Fox, last week, that spoke on our Magical Medical Tour. And he's a chiropractor and he works with athletes all around the world. And it was so wonderful to hear him say, trust the body, listen to
That's
your
right.
body, allow it, allow it. But,
Allow.
everything is like an elastic, right? I mean, you just have to allow it that time to learn that stretch, learn that position again.
That's
It's
right.
okay.
And to feel what you feel.
Yes.
That is one of the things that I really try to project in my classes is when you're in a pose, notice what the sensations are that you're feeling. Notice what the emotions are that you're feeling. Pay attention to those things because, we're so, it is a trifold path here. We are not just our body. We are, this whole being. And, so many emotions get locked up in our joints,
Hmm.
especially, if we have something like this going on, our emotions get locked up in it. So we have this, we have the effects of the disease, and then we have the effects of the emotions, the toxic emotions, and maybe a negative dialogue that we've had with ourselves. All of this gets locked into our muscles. So when that comes out, when all of that stuff comes out, I know I did, and I know many people who have had a profound emotional effect from this. I've had students start crying in class for absolutely, well, what they perceive as no reason. But there is a reason. They don't know necessarily what that is, but something has unlocked. Something has came to the surface and unlocked. And every time that this happens with me, and it's happened a few times as I deepen my practice. Sometimes we get into deeper muscles and we get into deeper emotions, and then we have this effect happen again. But every time it has happened, I have came out on the other side of the tunnel, a little stronger, maybe physically, or a little more flexible, maybe mentally and physically, or a little bit more enlightened, a little bit more mental clarity. So, sometimes you go through those dark points, but if you can just get to the other side of that dark point, you find this whole new freedom. And it really is a necessary process because I know with me, I did not deal with those emotions when I was sick. I never dealt with it. I was 17 years old. I was in complete isolation for 23 days with no human contact at all. That does not, you don't have that happen without affecting you, especially a child. Children need that. And I was a child, I was 17. And I thought I was grown. I thought I was big stuff, but I was a child. And and everybody, we are creatures that need people around. We're very social creatures. And so when you go for a period of time like that with no contact physically, I mean, it was through panes of glass, that I talked to people. It really affected me, and I was young and I couldn't identify that. But when I started doing yoga, those emotions came out. Those,
Mm.
that part of it came out. And we're talking 20 some odd years
That's
later,
right.
and,
Mm.
and they were still there. And that may have been more of what was causing my pain than the actual disease was. Everything was so bound up in me. Everything was so locked up. So, I would like to see everybody who has this type of issue, whether it's Lyme disease or Rocky Mountain spotted fever, be able to come into their own truth and release out those issues, those emotions, those, you may always have some pain. You may always have some emotional distress from time to time. We're going to have that. It's,
Mhm.
whether it's from a disease or it's just life in general, it's what we do with it. It's how we react to it, and it's what we do with it. So, I always find it comforting to me when I have those bouts come in my life to put on some soft music, to maybe light some incense or a candle, turn the lights down, get on my yoga mat and just take some me time.
Mm.
And of course, as I said to if you're not getting the answers that you want from your doctor, please get another opinion and another opinion and another opinion if you need to. Your life could depend on that. And
Mhm.
until we know more about these diseases, I fear that we are going to have these issues with doctors that just aren't in tune with it. That, this is something, and give the doctors a break on this a little bit too, because let's keep this in perspective. This is all just came about in the last, 20 years or so. Lyme disease, what was in 1987? That it
Mm.
was really discovered and recognized as an actual disease. So, in the scheme of things, we're still in the growing up stages of
Mhm.
this. So, we have to give the doctors a break on that too, that they are human and we just really don't know that much about it at this time, but we're learning. And
Mhm.
the Rocky Mountain Labs in, the National Institute of Allergies and Infectious Diseases, which is in the Rocky Mountain Labs, they are, doing tremendous research and work on this and have for many, many years. And they're making great strides. And with that, they are getting better able to educate the medical profession on this and the lasting effects. And I think it's also important for society to be educated on this. So, I don't I just really get very upset when I read a post on this Facebook survivors group and they say, "My family doesn't believe me," or "My husband thinks that I'm just a hypochondriac," or "I don't know, maybe I'm just lazy." You know, I had that dialogue for years,
Mm.
that I just thought this is all in my head. I would have doctors tell me, "Oh, this is Rocky Mountain spotted fever doesn't have any lasting effects." The doctor that actually treated me, not the one that diagnosed me initially, but the one that actually treated me has since died. So, I didn't have that connection with the doctor anymore that understood. And, throughout the years, I remember going in when I was pregnant with my kids, and I would tell, my OBGYN, I had Rocky Mountain spotted fever when I was 17. Do I have anything to worry about? And they would say, "Oh, no." Well, now there's questions on that. There are
Mm.
questions about whether or not this can be passed on. My kids have never been tested to see if they have anything. I don't know. They've never had any symptoms of any results of this. But, I mean, there are questions about that. And, really getting people to listen to you, getting yourself to believe yourself is first and foremost. Don't live in that denial. Don't do it because it's not going to be good for you. If your joints are hurting, if your muscles are aching, you
Mhm.
know it. You know how you feel. You know how you feel better than anybody else. So don't let anybody else tell you how you are feeling. That's They don't know. And if you don't have the support system within the group that you have now, find that support system. Find the Facebook group, Survivors
Mhm.
of Rocky Mountain Spotted Fever and Lyme Disease. Find people who understand because there's a bunch of us and we do understand.
So what we'll do, Kat, is we will actually, at the end of this video, we will post the Facebook group that you're part of. Is that okay to do that?
That would be wonderful. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
And also, I do know that you were saying that for any more information about Lyme disease, is people should actually go directly to the CDC.gov website to look in a little bit further, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Wonderful. We will
Absolutely.
do that. Now, what is the best way for people to contact you, Kat? If they have any questions
You
or
can contact me here on Yoga Hub. My handle on Yoga Hub is Active Cat.
so just to
And
let you all know that's if you type in myyogahub.com/active cat, active
mhm,
ACTIVE cat KAT. Okay, active
yeah,
cat.
Yeah,
So that would be a great way, and you could personally message her through that, and or just be in touch with her directly. That's great. And so, Kat, we would love to continue following up with you on this subject, and I know
sure.
it would be really wonderful if you, since you're doing these videos of poses and just maybe a short 15 minute, so it's not too overwhelming for
Sure.
anyone. That would be wonderful.
Sure.
That
I
we
would
could
be happy
link to
to. I would be
everything.
happy to. In fact, I've been promising on the group that I would get a video posted in chairs, and I just haven't been able to get to it yet. But I think that it's time, and I would be happy to. And I want to share this information because I know how much it's helped me.
Mhm.
And this is just really yoga is just really a good exercise for those of you who feel like that you no longer can exercise.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And also for those of you who are dealing with, excessive pain, Neil Pearson, who's also one of our other faculty members,
Yes.
he has the videos and DVDs, overcoming pain with gentle yoga. So, there is a level one DVD that's available, as well as I do believe that he will be working on his level two this year as well. But I've heard wonderful, wonderful feedback on those, just to let the audience
He
know.
has some very good blogs too on
Yeah.
managing pain.
He
Very good
does. He
blogs.
does. Well,
So,
that's
yes.
his focus. He is a physical therapist. He is a yoga therapist, so he's able to integrate the two. But his focus is really helping people through pain and overcoming pain, and so that they're able to live. I don't want to say normal, because normal is like a setting on a hair dryer. Just helping them
Right.
to live a more balanced life, basically.
Right.
So I always say, as much as we can bring in, as much as we can, each of us can offer, it's all connection, right? It's all connection,
Right.
and what speaks to one person may not speak to another person as well. So
Right.
go out
And
there and
knowledge is
find it.
power.
Yes.
Knowledge is power. The more that you know about your disease, the more options that you can find to manage your disease, the more likely you are to find your personal modality to manage this. So, make yourself knowledgeable, read as much as you can about your disease. You know, Truly find out more about it than your doctor knows. I'm a firm believer that when somebody has an illness of any kind, they need to be so aware of it, and they need to know exactly what this is going to do to their body or could do to their body or has done to their body, so they can take steps to correct those, you
Mm.
know, abnormalities that may have occurred from it, such as diet and exercise and pain management, and get to know what's available out there for you, because there's several things that can help you along this path of healing and reconnecting with yourself.
Mm, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Kat
Thank you.
Robinson, for sharing with us all. It
It's
was great to have you on our
it's
show.
always fun to be here with you guys. It's always fun, and thank you so much.
Well, this
Thank
is
you
just
so
the
much for having
beginning.
me. Yes, yes,
Right, just the beginning.
yes.
Thank you. And we look forward to having you back on the show. I know you're going to be coming back. So,
I hope
and
to.
yes, of
Yeah,
course,
I hope to.
you're sort of diving further and further into the Yoga Hub family. So,
And I love being part of the Yoga Hub family.
thank
So,
you so much. Thank you for honoring us. And I'd like to thank everyone for joining us here today. And please be in touch with us or Kat Robinson directly if you're dealing with anything, with the Rocky Mountain spotted fever or the Lyme disease. And she could no doubt guide you and help you through. Okay, take care, everyone. See you next week here on
namaste.
yogahub.com. And next week, Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Take care. Namaste.